The fight on Saturday, I still felt like we won it. I fought a lot off my back foot as a southpaw and against my natural fighting style. My explosiveness and coming forward and being aggressive. I tried to show something a little too different. Al showed up. He put on a great performance. Landed a great shot in the 4th round. All I can say is I'm gonna be back, and I'm still gonna be a champ. Regardless of where it's at and what it is.
9.
In this fight, there were a couple of reasons as to how Yanan was able to get this upset. One being that Mueller had very poor submission defense. She didn't stack her opponent when she was in that armbar. She really didn't fight to get out of it either. She stayed on her knees when she should have done this right here. Also, Mueller had a lack of fighting experience. She only had 5 professional matches before facing off against Yanan. There really shouldn't be anyone that's this big of a favorite when they have such a lack of fighting experience. And the third reason is that Mueller on her Instagram posted that she was very sick leading up to the fight and that she had the worst weight cut of her career.
Eight.
Ladies and gentlemen, Smiling Sam here, coming after an unvictorious night. And his littlest man, Crosby. Say hi, Crosby.
Hi.
Anyways, just want to let everyone know I thank you so much for all the support, and for those of you that are hating on me, rotten hell. But it was fun here in Brazil. I'm sorry I'm leaving a loser, but next time I'm in the cage, maybe Milwaukee. I'm pushing for it. I would love to fight in my hometown. But anyways, thank you again, guys. I'm feeling all right. I'm going to go get a Brazilian steakhouse before I get on a plane. And I'll be back to the States to train, get better, and I'm never going to lose again. You watch it happen. Or watch it not happen. Anyways, thank you, guys.
7.
So why was Chad Laprise a minus 400 favorite? Before this matchup, Laprise was 5-1 in the UFC when fighting on Canadian soil, and this matchup took place in Toronto. Also, Dhiego Lima was on a 3-fight losing skid prior to this matchup, and Laprise was thought to have the faster hands and the superior boxing technique. Now, there are a few reasons to explain as to how Laprise ended up losing this fight. One is that he was devastatingly knocked out just 6.5 months prior by Vicente Luque, and he was knocked down in the fight before that against Buffando. Not only was Laprise's chin now shot, but also Lima did a good job in setting up the hook. For the majority of the fight, Lima was throwing jabs every time he would press forward. And for the KO sequence, he came forward again, but this time he threw the hook. Laprise went to parry a jab, but guessed it wrong.
Six.
The main reason that Nordine Taleb closed as a minus 400 favorite is because Silva was coming off a 3.5-year layoff. Silva was inactive for 3.5 years due to numerous injuries, one of them being a broken foot. Silva was at a massive disadvantage in Muay Thai technique and physical strength and size. Taleb also had more UFC experience with 8 prior contests. Silva only had 2. Lastly, Taleb was coming off a first-round knockout over Danny Roberts. And as I always say, don't overrate a fighter coming off a first-round finish win. Let the betting public and the odds makers do that. Now we understand why Taleb was a minus 400 favorite, but how did he lose? Taleb blamed the ref for telling him not to grab Silva's glove. In a game of inches, that certainly could have affected the finishing sequence of the fight, but in my opinion, the 2 biggest reasons were the single leg takedown from Silva and the success in advancing to a dominant position on the ground. For the single leg, Silva was able to catch an inside low kick and then started to run the pipe. As for advancing position, Taleb was only taken down once in his past 4 UFC fights, so people didn't know how he would perform once taken down by such a high-level BJJ black belt. Taleb had no answer for the ground skills of Silva, as we come to find out, and the fight was over shortly after.
5.
Dariush closed as a minus 420 favorite because Dariush was a perennial top 10 fighter in the UFC lightweight division, and Hernandez was making his UFC debut on less than 2 weeks short notice. Out of 486 UFC fights, when a UFC veteran faced a debuting fighter, the veteran wins 57% of the time. Hernandez was able to overcome the odds because there was a lot more tape on Dariush than there was on Hernandez at the time. Not to mention that Dariush was brutally knocked out by Barboza a year prior. Be wary of taking big favorites that were recently knocked out in devastating fashion. Also, the stance switching and quicker hand speed got Hernandez the victory. Right before the knockout, Hernandez switched to southpaw and hit Dariush with a straight left. Hernandez showcased astonishing speed in this fight. Hernandez was able to land that straight left as Dariush was slowly gearing up for an overhand left.
4.
Edwards was a minus 450 favorite in this matchup because he got a quick 28-second knockout just 4 months prior to this bout. Edwards was also a credentialed wrestler. He competed at Arizona State, which is a D1 program. One of his most notable achievements there was placing third in the Pac-10 championships. So Edwards had some perceived KO power and wrestling skills. Madge primarily fought in South Africa and Thailand. That makes it difficult to find any tape to analyze his skills pre-fight. Before this fight happened, the most recent video I uncovered about Madge was 6 years old. Odds makers didn't really have much to go on. Well, Madge showed some hidden talent in this matchup. Some reasons as to how Edwards lost were that he didn't keep his hands up and he was untested. There was also some cardio issues. In the combination that first dropped Edwards, after Edwards threw a 1-2, he didn't retract either punch back to protect his chin. He also didn't move his head off the center line. The lack of striking defense was the main culprit as to how he lost. As for Edwards being untested, this was the first time that he got dropped and almost submitted in a round. He wasn't used to making in-fight adjustments. He was used to knocking people out in the first round. The moral of the story here is that just because there's a lack of footage on a fighter, you shouldn't assume that he must be an unskilled fighter. And also, if a fighter is untested, if they lack a resume that shows wins over quality opponents, then they shouldn't be a minus 450 favorite.
3.
Have you watched the fight in its entirety yet?
I have.
Do you think you won the fight?
I should have done more. I should have done more. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say what the judges are looking for, right? Like, if I look at it as a standpoint as somebody who is, landing shots, if the roles were reversed, and if I would have taken him down, I knew I would have passed guard. I knew when I would have got, my signature game going on, I knew I would have mounted. Typically, when I take people down, I've never seen knock guard. I've never seen pass guard. I'm always cautious. I'm always looking to pass. I'm always looking to start, my signature game. He didn't necessarily do that. He wanted to hold it down because it's hard to get a hold of me. So, a guy at the gym, I was at the gym on Saturday. He goes, "You know what pisses me off about that fight, BJ?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Somebody can become a world champion by just holding you down. It's my fault. I should have got up. I should have, elevated him. I should have went to his legs and looked for a heel hook. I should have popped my hips and, went to a knee bar. I should have done more." So for me, I look at it as like I should have done more. I should have let my hands go a little more instead of like, "Oh man, I won that fight." I should have did more.
Pedro was a minus 525 favorite in this matchup because he is 10 years younger than Shogun. According to BetMMA.tips, when a fighter is 10 years younger than their opponent, they win 64% of the time. Not only was Pedro a lot younger, but Shogun had a lot of wear and tear from his past 36 fights. To add even more favor to Pedro, the fight was taking place in his home country of Australia. Pedro was 6-0 in MMA bouts that took place in Australia prior to his matchup with Shogun. Lastly, Shogun was brutally knocked out by Anthony Smith just 5 months before facing off against Pedro. So how was Shogun able to beat the odds to defeat his opponent? Well, Pedro tore his ACL in the fight. Here's Tyson Pedro recalling the freakish injury.
Had surgery 3 days ago, full ACL Rico, so Shogun got me. Son of a...
What exactly happened? I mean,
when he kicked my foot out in the second round, early in the second, he kicked my foot out, and it was a non-contact tear, I think they call it, and my knee bent out. Yeah, he got me good. Like, you can't deal with that in the fight. Like I tried to pretend like it didn't happen, didn't want to tell anyone. Like I was in my head, I knew it tore straight away, but like you just try and pretend like it didn't happen and try and see what can happen from there. Couldn't push off the floor. When I was trying to stand up, I was falling over, but I didn't really know what happened, but I just knew it was bad. So.
One.
Ankalaev was a whopping -800 favorite. He's a Dagestan-born fighter who was named the 2015 Mixed Martial Artist of Russia by the Russian MMA Federation. Ankalaev had 3 consecutive knockouts before facing Craig. On the other side of the octagon, Craig was coming in on back-to-back losses, which both happened in the first round. Craig was looking uninspiring on the feet and only had 6 years of MMA training. The betting public bet Ankalaev up from a -410 to a -800. Paul Craig was able to win this fight though, solely because of his most talented skill, which was locking in a triangle quickly. I cannot think of too many light heavyweights in the UFC who can throw up a triangle faster than Paul Craig. What also helped Craig was playing possum, whether he was knowingly doing that or not. But showing absolutely zero threat for 14.5 minutes out of a 15-minute fight can make an opposing fighter get complacent with their submission defense. When you combine complacency with somebody who specializes in triangle attacks, this is what happens.